Hey guys, this is DP0427 here for another episode of the Watchtower. And with me, as always, we have Mr. Scotty back from the JLR.
Hey guys, kind of nice now to be part of the always team for the Watchtower. That's cool.
You're going to be at least a regular for this segment, and then maybe we'll have you on other segments too in the future. So we'll see. We'll go from there. So today, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched Shazam yet. This is going to be completely all about Shazam today. So if you don't want to be spoiled, tune out now and come back after you've seen it. So, but we're going to go straight into it. We're going to talk as much as we like about the movie, and the rest be damned. So, you've been warned.
Isn't the statute of limitations on spoilers 2 weeks anyway?
More or less, but to be fair, if people are like me, and Shazam just came out in Japan on Friday. So,
all right.
So at the time of this recording, right? So, but I watched it as early as I could, which was this Sunday afternoon. So, all right. So, first of all, we have a rough structure, which kind of mostly wing this segment for Shazam. We're going to talk about general thoughts, give a rating out of 10, let's say. Talk about things we liked or didn't like about the movie, and parts of particular scenes, end credit scenes, stuff like that. So first we'll start with general thoughts and a rating out of 10. So Scotty, why don't you go first?
Sure. So overall, I actually really enjoyed the movie.
Okay.
Shazam is sort of one of those characters that I relate to really well, because he's sort of just this like amazingly wise, smart, strong, like Superman level hero, right? But inside he's just a child. And so I kind of relate to that really well,
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm this like awesome adult that is still a 10-year-old kid inside and never will change. So I think that's pretty wild. But because of that, I kind of went in, really hopeful that things were going to be good. A lot of the movie was actually filmed right around the corner from the last place I was working. So that's really neat too. So I got to kind of look at a bunch of those scenes. But overall, I really enjoyed the movie. It was entertaining as heck. I feel like the actors turned in a pretty good job. Both the kids as well as Zachary Levi. I think he did really well. Special effects were good, but not overdone. And overall, I'd say, fairly true to the source material. There were surprises in the movie as well, which I know we'll get to, which were really exciting. And overall, I'd give the movie like a solid 7.5, 8, I think. Yeah. Like it was very enjoyable. I wouldn't go out of my way to say it's a must see, but if you do enjoy the source material, I would definitely. It's not a waste of time.
Okay, great. So that's a good summary and a decent rating for the movie. So 7.5 out of 8, you said, or 8 out of 10, you said.
Yeah, I might even push it to 8. I'd give it an 8 out of 10.
Fair enough. All right. So for me, let's start with the rating, I guess, from my side, since you ended with the rating. So I would probably agree with you. I'd give it an 8, even maybe push it higher to 8.5 out of 10, because I really like the movie for its comedic aspects and what it brought for the genre of the DC universe. Because what DC universe, the DC extended universe, I meant to say the cinematic universe rather. So the cinematic universe, what it's lacking right now, if we compare it to Marvel, for example, is that one standalone comedic thing, like how Thor had Thor Ragnarok, for example. Right? Now, is it fair to compare this to Thor Ragnarok? Maybe not exactly, but it is sort of that comic relief from sort of the darker aspects of the DCEU. And it does give you that sort of buddy cop light feeling, that sort of fun aspect, and still gives you that superhero movie elements that you wanted out of the movie. So I really enjoyed that aspect, and for that reason alone, I'll give it at least an 8. And then I give it a higher 8.5 out of 10 for other reasons we'll get into later. So my general thoughts on the movie, it's a very good time. Like if you're going to go to the theater expecting a superhero movie, you're going to get that. If you're going to go to the movie expecting some comedy, you're going to get that, right? Especially a lot of stuff you see from the trailer, it delivers on that from the trailers. So generally, I think it's a good time. Unless you're not into that type of comedy, then I don't. Maybe it's not for you. But otherwise, I think this is a movie for anybody, and you'll probably leave the movie theater feeling, satisfied and entertained. So
yeah, I think that to just kind of chime in on the humor real quick, the one thing I really enjoyed about it is that the humor was there, but it wasn't forced or overdone.
Right.
right? There are definitely some lines and some moments in Ragnarok, as an example, since you referred to it earlier, that really felt like they were put in there just for the purpose of being funny. Whereas I felt like a lot of the humor that was generated within Shazam was, for the most part, like it didn't feel forced to me, except for probably the one, the superhero monologuing or the supervillain monologuing moment. Yeah. It was good, but that was about the only forced piece. Everything else just felt genuine. It wasn't over the top. It wasn't like they were funny for the sake of being funny. It's just when you consider the fact that these are teenagers, basically, that are starring in the movie, it kind of fell along those lines. So I did enjoy it for that.
Right. And just to sort of, I guess we'll get into that aspect of it since we're already on that topic. We'll just kind of branch off from there. To talk more about the comedic aspect, as you were saying, the comedy in and of itself is based around the kids, right? It's based around the teenagers. And what makes it funny isn't the fact that it's, like you said, it's not, in your face, it's not forced humor, but it's also humor that kids can relate to. This is what kids find funny. And we find it funny because we used to be kids, or we're still a kid at heart. And that's sort of what helps us relate to that humor, right? So it's funny, for example, for someone like us to go to the theater and see this and like, oh, he's a big kid and that's why it's funny. And then if, for example, if I took someone like, my nephew or, my friend who takes their kids, or you take your daughter to the theater, they could probably appreciate that too from their point of view as well, right? Whereas something like Thor Ragnarok, it's probably, there is a lot of humor in it, but some of it might get lost in translation for kids, for example, right?
Well, Guardians is a good example of that, right?
True.
Where
so
most of the humor in Guardians was more geared towards the adults to get paid off for bringing the kids to the movie.
Right.
So,
there you go.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Agreed.
So, so we talked about the comedic aspects about it. So, in specific, are there any characters that you found funnier than others that you really liked for that comedic aspect?
Yeah, I mean, I think Freddy steals the show, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, his sort of, sarcastic, self-deprecating humor, I just found absolutely hilarious. And, all of the little kind of subtle jokes and jabs that he plays at, too, I think were really good. You can see that character arc progress really, really well. But at the first, he's sort of this, deep down wounded character that, really enjoys using humor as a tool to deflect from his own sense of inadequacy. And he does it supremely well. One of my favorite moments of that, specifically when he was, he first meets Billy transformed, and they kind of meet in that back alley, and they're doing this like very brief power test, and the whole, try to be invisible. And he's like, oh my God, you're invisible. And then, it turns out, no, he's not. He's just been messing with him the whole time. I found that was like a
nice costume, douchebag.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It was a great Freddy humor moment, and it was awesome. It's a lot of that kind of throughout the course of it. And so I really liked him a lot.
Yeah, that was funny. I do like that aspect of it. It was what kids do to each other. They just pick on each other for whatever reason, right? And I like that. That was good. And I liked Freddy for that. It's the same aspects as you do. But for me, one character that didn't really get that much screen time, but I did like it for when he was on screen, was Eugene, the Asian kid in the family, right? So it's funny because when he becomes a part of the Shazam family, when he gets his powers, everyone's doing their thing, right? His thing, we don't really know exactly what. I think he's a technopath, right? On top of the fact that he has the Shazam powers, he has the ability to control technology too. But when he starts zapping the monsters, he's like, Hadouken! That got me. I laughed really hard in the theater. And it's funny because this is one of the only superhero movies that I've watched in the theaters in Japan where a lot of the Japanese audience members were also laughing alongside me because they all got that joke.
Nice.
So that was funny. Yeah, he stood out. He even though the fact that he's a gamer too, and that's another thing about this movie, because Captain Marvel originally back in the day, the comic books during the Fawcett comic series and the DC comic series way back in the day, this is something way before we were born, right? And they rewrote the script. They made it so that it's more in line with today's generation. They have social media on there. They have gamers. They have streaming. They have all that pop culture stuff that we know today in there.
I feel like the source material for this was really more in sort of New 52 rebirth, right?
Definitely.
And I think that played really well. And as far as DC goes with their EU, I really believe that in order for them to make successful movies, they need to continue to follow along that source material. Mm-hmm. Because if you're digging too far back into it, I think that you lose that capacity to connect with familiarity within, if you're forced to adapt the source material to modern day, I don't think it's going to be as effective as just, being faithful to the source material that's already been upgraded and modernized. So I was really excited about that. And you brought up the Shazam family, and that was actually the biggest surprise that had me cheering.
Me too.
Right? There's no mention whatsoever in any of the trailers about the fact that the Shazam family does actually occur. Like,
exactly.
You kind of get the little hints and stuff where there's like, there used to be 7 and here's the empty chairs, et cetera, et cetera. So you get all of that leading up. And if you know what you're looking for, you can read the signs.
Yeah.
But you still don't know if they're actually going to do it, and maybe they're saving it for the sequel. But then they pull it off, and they actually do it, and I was just like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted.
I felt exactly the same way. So basically, everything leading up to that point was perfectly well written in the script too, I found. So the way they were introducing Billy into the foster family, and how the parents were trying to get him to be part of the group, be part of them, with the all hands on deck, and basically their form of saying grace before dinner and all that stuff, right? And he was sort of like standoffish until that point. Then they got into the carnival scene, and then they got to he realized what he had to do with what the wizard Solomon was telling him, and then he realized, okay, I gotta get the staff, and he said, all right, everybody, all hands on deck, and that was that's where everything clicked, right?
Yep.
That's where everything clicked, and they're like, all right, say my name, and everyone, all hands on deck, say my name. It's like, Billy.
It was Billy. No, the other name.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody in the theater laughed. That was hilarious. And there was no humor lost there by anyone in any language. That was awesome, and that was great. And then the realizing of it, and all that coming together, it was accumulated perfectly in that one moment, right? And then after you see the aftermath of all that, and then they go back home, and they're back there with the parents, and they're at the dinner scene, and Billy's the one who says, all right, all hands on deck. And that sort of brings it all together, right? So first of all, like that scene where they all become the Shazam family, that, my friend in the theater with me, he basically had to help hold me back from standing up and cheering. And then at the end, the scene with the family at the dinner, I was holding back the tears. Man, this is awesome. So it was
a really good story. Yeah, I felt like they did a very good job of bringing all of that full circle. Right, you get to see the character journey not only of Billy, but like really just the whole family as a whole, and how they end up coalescing together as a real unit. And I thought that was really, really good. It was super well done. Lots of like nice stab you in the heart moments too, when Billy's trying to find his mom and realize that she doesn't want him, and he has to try to internalize all of that, and he takes his own little deep dark journey with his powers, right? He's like, oh, I've got these powers now, I don't need anybody, and it kind of fuels that the pre-climax Billy mentality,
right,
where he's like, I can do it all on my own, and now I can totally do it all on my own. And you kind of get these moments where they are formative and they're well done, and I was really, really impressed with it overall.
Yeah, I mean, what you're saying there, the one thing that really fixated on me when I was listening to you there, when you're talking about the mother scene, right? And I liked how they did it in terms of the writing, because they didn't overdo it. They did it just enough. They showed the mother. They showed that she wasn't, basically the right person for him to be with. And they just ended it real briefly. Like they made it, maybe a 5-minute scene or something like that, and it was done. Right. Yeah. There could have been other movies that they could have dragged that on. They could have made that more of a thing, and how that's like affecting his life, and he's down in the dumps and things like that. But they cleaned that up. He moved on. And this is his new life, and he figured out this is my real family now. So
well, and the other thing too is I think it was right after that too that after that encounter with his mom, that he realized that Dr. Sylvanas was actually at the house. Right.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
So he kind of had to so what have I done to really screw this up? I have this family and I've put them in danger, and I need to clean up my mess. And so he kind of had to turn it around. And that moment when he runs up to the roof and he just runs off and
Shazam's.
that scene from the trailers. Yeah, it was really good. I was really glad to see that that's where it sat.
That was his so to speak Batman moment, or his Superman moment, like of coming into character moment, right? Mm-hmm. That all the superheroes will have in their origin movies, right? So I like that. It was really good. In terms of like, I guess the stunt scenes or the special effects and things like that, were there any scenes that you really liked? Like, for example, the bus scene or the battles with Sylvana? Anything you particularly liked?
The bus scene I really enjoyed. I thought that was really well done. I really liked the superpower discovery scenes.
Right.
When he's like jumping up on the half pipe and punching through walls and stuff, or columns and such. I really felt like that was like it was realistically done without looking over processed and overdone. So that was cool. But I honestly, I think the crowning achievement of special effects was all of the action sequences that occurred within the amusement park. I just felt like that was the perfect the perfect example of that. It was pretty sweet.
Seeing all the Marvels fight at the same time, that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And
agree.
So, and I liked because I didn't know much about the new 52 Marvel family, because maybe this is something that either the movie's introducing or this is something that I'm not up to date with. But I only know of Mary Marvel and Shazam Jr., right, or Captain Marvel Jr., like basically Captain Marvel 2 and 3. But I don't know of the green one, the silver one, and the purple one, right? So the green one is, from what I was reading on the wiki, right? So the green one is supposed to be, like, obviously from what we saw, a bigger buffer Shazam. So on top of his Shazam powers, he has more strength than the other Shazams, right? The silver one, or the gray one, is on top of his Shazam powers, he's a technopath, so he can control technology. And the purple one is more of like a speedster Shazam. On top of her Shazam powers, she's really fast. So, and we saw a bit of that. But is this something from the comics, or is this something that they're writing in? So that's what I was trying to figure out. So I haven't read enough of them, but I imagine it's probably like everything else has been really faithful. So I have to imagine it's going to be about the same thing. Okay.
But I really liked how they kind of all have the exaggerated power set. So they all sort of have a baseline, whereas I think that Billy's baseline is higher than the average baseline, but then the others sort of have, more exaggerated stats in some realms than the others. And I think it was really well done, because I think it makes the 7 worthwhile, since there's 6 Shazam powers that kind of go in. Yeah. Right. So I think that's cool.
Now, okay. So, I mean, we talked about a lot of what we liked so far. Is there anything that we didn't like about the movie? Anything that you remember that you didn't like too much?
Yeah. So, again, I feel like there were 2 moments I think that were a little bit on the nose. I think that, the villain monologuing, which we referred to earlier, whereas, they're fighting and flying against each other and chasing each other around the city. And, at some point in time they stop and they're, 400 meters away from each other, flying in the air. That was funny. Sylvanas just like goes off on this crazy villain monologue, and Billy's just like, "What? What? I can't hear you. What?"
We're like a mile apart here.
Yeah. So like, I'm kind of like, I could take or leave that moment. I get why they did it, but it just kind of felt a little on the nose.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I could kind of take or leave was, oh crap, I had it in my head. 1 second. You'll have to come back to me. I'll get it in a minute.
Okay, that's fine. Well, yeah. For me, when we were talking about the scenes where, like, we really appreciated the whole superhero power test thing, the part of that I didn't like too much, I felt was a bit overdone, was the social media aspect of Freddy. Now, Freddy was becoming a YouTuber, essentially, right? And was it the superhero manager? That was his YouTube name.
Yeah.
And it became a lot about social media and that presence and that sort of fame and how it got into their high school, right? So that basically was what he was trying to play off of. And I guess this is more about the reality we live in today. And it's kind of ironic, the fact that we as content creators and on YouTube as well, we're talking about this too. But, I felt like it was a bit overplayed. Maybe show it once or twice, but it was like a large sequence of that, right? That was what Freddy had going for him as a high school student. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure if that's the message we want to be sending to kids at the same time. But, maybe I'm thinking too much into it. But I felt it was overdone, so.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that. I remembered what the other piece was. I was not a fan of how they had to eventually beat Sylvanas. Like that whole, enticing Envy out of him in order to beat him. Like, I was kind of like, really? It felt a little Deus Ex for me, but, I get it. But I thought that the way that Sylvanas had all his powers and how he manifested them and all that stuff, I felt that was very good.
Yep.
I just wish that he could have, he should have been able to beat him some other way. That's all.
What do you think about Mark Strong as Sylvana?
Great job. What a fantastic job. He's a great actor anyway.
Yeah.
Right. But he really had that sort of sinister, scheming villain thing coming across really, really well. I was super impressed with this performance. Right. May have been one of the best performances in the entire movie. Actually.
Right. He's a really creepy dude when it comes down to that kind of stuff. Right. So he was the perfect choice for that. And can we give a quick shout out to his father in the movie, the old school Lionel Luthor from the Smallville series.
Yeah, of course.
I remember them like, I haven't seen this guy in a while. That was good to see him again. So overall it was pretty good. Is there anything that we expect going forward? Oh, actually, before we go into that, let's talk about the cutscenes and other scenes, I guess, right? So the first cutscene, the scene with him in the jail cell, and he's trying to write the scriptures out, but then his chalk or his whatever breaks, and then we get to see Mr. Mind. Did you see Mr. Mind?
Yeah, and he was in the fortress before.
Yeah, I didn't actually know if that was Mr. Mind or not. I thought it was just like a bug, or just something. And then was it Mr. Mind? And then it broke out. I guess, it's Mr. Mind who broke out. Then is that? Yeah. And then he was there at the end. I'm like, okay. So
I think that's going to be really cool because that's like a whole new, unique type of enemy that the Shazam family is going to have to try to take on.
Right.
And Mr. Mind is absurdly powerful.
Yeah.
Right. So it's going to really step up the game.
Right. And they have to form their own like little society, their own allegiance, right? And then with all their other, evil superhero or evil supervillains, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is, what's interesting about that, because if I figure that's what the route they're going to go down. Now, I'm assuming Shazam at some point is probably going to have to fight Black Adam, probably in the next Black Adam standalone thing, right? But if there's like a Shazam 2, he might get into this with Sylvana again, with and Mr. Mind, right? But
yes,
in Justice League, if we go back to what we remember from the Justice League movie, we know that the Injustice League is being formed with Lex Luthor and Deathstroke, right? Mm-hmm. So how many of the sort of evil supervillain groups and alliances are forming in the DC cinematic universe right now? Like, there's a lot to handle, because we know from the second cutscene that he meets up with Superman.
Yeah, he does. And
that made me.
Well, that was the actual end of the movie. Yeah. The Superman scene was the actual end of the movie. So right. Superman ends up coming to lunch. And
right.
Sitting down next to Freddy. So that was cool.
Sorry.
But the second cutscene was actually just them bagging on Aquaman.
That was funny.
And that was hilarious. Like, that was actually worth waiting for. It was really funny.
It's like look like me, I can talk to fish. What kind of superpower is that? Yeah.
You control an entire army of the sea. Hello. Yeah, it was pretty good.
He's posting the shirt that he's wearing.
Yeah. But I think so. To your point, though, I think that the DC cinematic universe needs that. Like, I think that part of the problem that they've had is they've been too narrow in their focus, I think, and being able to kind of open up to some further potential and basically saying, hey guys, like, we do have big ideas. There are things that we could do. These are all, things that exist within this world. I think it gives them a lot of writing space, for the future of the movies, because I think that that's something that they've needed. Mm-hmm. We've seen that. We've seen those seeds planted. It's been very evident since the initial cutscenes of Iron Man at the end. Like Iron Man 1, we knew that there was a plan for the Avengers. We knew that there was a plan for all these movies and all these people. Like, Kevin Feige has had this vision. And we are only now starting to see it by next weekend in North America, see it come to fruition with Endgame.
Right.
And, it's been a joy to watch that type of plan execute. And in my opinion, I think that sort of vision and that sort of roadmap has actually been DC Cinematic Universe's major Achilles heel.
Right.
There hasn't been that one person that's been leading the charge. Jeff Johns is trying, but I mean, it's not the same. He doesn't have the same sort of power or influence, I guess. I mean, without really knowing, that Feige's had. But if he can start pulling together those sort of plans for storylines, dude, there's nothing stopping it. DC source material is insane.
If we're talking about roadmaps and sort of where the DCEU is headed, I personally think we have about 2 or 3 different branches that they're going down right now. So we have what I'm going to call the Justice League branch, which involves the Trinity, right? Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And that is basically, the story of the Justice League versus probably Darkseid eventually, but most likely the Injustice League first. That's one branch, right? Mm-hmm. The next branch is all the secondary characters that they're introducing, like Shazam now. And then they're going to be doing Birds of Prey soon. They're going to be doing Joker. They're going to be doing another Wonder Woman movie, right? So they're sort of doing some more origin stuff. Aquaman 2 probably eventually as well. There's Cyborg and Flashpoint also confirmed at some point later down the line. So what I'm expecting it to do, so basically I expect Cyborg, Flashpoint, and Wonder Woman 1984 to sort of basically branch off from the Justice League direction, but then sort of come back to it. Then you have characters like Shazam. They're off doing their own thing. They'll join the Justice League and then continue doing their own thing. Sort of like Ant-Man in the Avengers series, right?
Sure.
If we could think of it that way.
That's a good parallel, actually. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So the question is basically, now then you have another branch now. The third branch is these sort of villain anti-hero branches like Joker, Birds of Prey, things like that, right? Where does that fit? And Suicide Squad. So where does that fit in? So that's like off doing another whole different thing. Is that going to come back around to, for example, the Injustice League? Is that going to come back around to the Justice League branch? Or is that going to stay a third different thing? So
I think it has to come around. The only exception to that is I believe I've read somewhere that the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix actually technically falls under the Elseworlds brand.
Oh, so it could be a whole different other reality.
I think so. Yeah. Now they may prove us wrong with the actual execution of the movie, and we'll see. But everything about the origin story and the character and who they are and where they get to, it all feels very Elseworlds, because I don't think any of it is really canon. So so we'll see how that one shakes out. But I think that, with regards to Suicide Squad and with regards to, the Birds of Prey stuff, I'm fairly confident that all of that stuff is still in canon, because we've demonstrated, even in the first Suicide Squad movie, that was proven to be part of sort of that Trinity line.
Right.
Because Batman was in that movie, right? So that's all part of the same thing. But I think that it kind of has to come full circle. And if it does, and they all meet up in the middle for some sort of event, now we've got something, right? I think that's execution of, that proof of that vision.
Right.
But if they don't, and they continue on these separate divergent paths, then I think that's, completely proving the other side that there isn't enough, cohesiveness within the universe, and that's not going to serve anybody.
Fair enough. So for this year's movies so far, part of the thing that I want to think about in terms of where DCEU is heading, or the DC Cinematic Universe rather, is in terms of their budget and in terms of their success rate. Because recently, I think within the last quarter of last year, AT&T bought out or is now a majority shareholder of Time Warner. And basically, they're calling the shots on a lot of their projects, right? Like game-related, movie-related, so on and so forth. So I think a lot of the DC Cinematic Universe's future hangs in the balance, or is reliant on the success of the movies that came out this year so far, and for the next upcoming new movies. So basically, Aquaman, Shazam, we have Joker coming up, and I don't know if we have another one this year. I think the next one after that might be Wonder Woman, 1984, I think. So basically, at least up until Joker this year, they all have to basically kill it, so that the other movies that are sort of to be decided in terms of dates, that are not already in the process of filming, actually get greenlit and continue down. Because we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline. like Birds of Prey. As I said before, we have
so that's filming already.
Yeah.
So Birds of Prey is already filming.
Yeah.
I think that The Flash is due to start next, and Wonder Woman I think has wrapped.
Okay. Right.
So we definitely have those coming. Joker obviously is coming this year, but I think that those two movies are for sure coming next year. But as far as greenlighting further projects, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I obviously. Aquaman was a global success,
right?
Much to the surprise of literally everybody. Thank you, Jason Momoa, for being amazing. Yes. I guess. And Nicole so much ass.
Yeah.
And then Shazam was great, and it had it slammed a pile of records as well. I'm not hopeful for Joker.
Okay.
As far as being a box office scenario, and I think that the reason for that is because of its sort of island type plot styling.
Okay.
So unless I'm proven wrong, which could happen, if it remains out on an island, I don't see good things for it unless Joaquin delivers a Heath Ledger style performance, which is not outside of his capacity, by the way.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I hope that it exceeds our expectations, at least for now, because there's a lot riding on it for our future of the as fans of the DC Cinematic Universe. So, and in terms of, I guess, rolling back to sort of the Justice League branch of where that's headed in terms of the cinematic universe, we know that Shazam, at the end of the movie, has at least spoken to Superman. At this point, can we say that he's going to be in the next Justice League movie, you think?
I mean, there's not really even a next Justice League movie planned, right?
Right.
So
if there is,
if there is, I mean, I can't see why he wouldn't be. I don't think the whole family will be a part of it, but I can't see why Zachary Levi wouldn't be in that.
That's right. So the other thing is then, if you think about it that way now, in terms of the Justice League as the formation of the Justice League right now, we still are, missing several key characters, because Shazam, if people follow either the old canon or the new canon, the new 52 rather, he comes in a lot later than some of the key characters we still don't have, right? Like Green Arrow, Martian Hunter,
Green Lantern.
Right, Green Lantern. And also, that was one of the other things. I remember there was a Green Lantern Corps movie in works since like 2018 or something like that. So they've had a script like in the process of being written for that. So, but anyways, I guess we'll get into that sometime later down the line, but we'll see. Okay, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Overall, movie was great. Had a lot of fun. I guess the next time we'll be talking about Avengers mainly, but if there's any other DC news, maybe we'll talk about Doom Patrol if we have time as well. I think by this time next month, Doom Patrol will be done. Or
yeah, I think so.
About right, yeah. We're on episode 6 or 7, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it should be done within the month, and then Young Justice will be starting up shortly thereafter. Right. If I'm not surprised. I think they actually dovetail into each other.
Right, and Swamp Thing as well. Swamp Thing starts in June.
Yeah. That some of the stills that I've seen from that look insane.
Yeah, it looks good. And Gotham wraps up soon too.
So, next week, or something.
I saw the
next
trailer.
Episode is
I saw the trailer for the last episode. It looks really good.
Nice.
Anyways.
I'm actually way behind in that one, so I'll have to catch up.
Go catch up. It's good. It's getting really good. Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll wrap things up there. So with that, have a good night, guys. See you later.
Yeah. Ciao.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of WROL Broadcasts, a subsidiary of the Oddsman and We Are Legends. To view additional content and support the show, please go to patreon.com/WROL Broadcasts.